In this video, I think this is the 7th of section 3.3. I'm going to review very briefly this formula that I just explained for compound interest, and then I'm going to do an example for you. So just briefly, in this formula, the 1 makes it so that you keep your money, the money that you had before the compounding. The R over N will add the interest when it's multiplied by P. We'll add the interest at each compounding. And the N times T is actually the number of times the interest is compounded. Not per year, the total number of times the interest was compounded. Okay? So, for example, suppose you invest $1,000 at 3.1% annual interest. It's a pretty common interest rate these days. Compounded weekly, which is a little slightly unusual. Maybe like one of my two credit unions. Compound weekly. How much is your investment worth after 7 years? Okay, so I write down what all the variables are first. So R, or you could write down the general formula first without the numbers plugged in. Just the general formula, like A equals P times parenthesis 1 plus Rn close parenthesis raised to the NT power, right? Which I have written right above. Very often I'll just write out that formula without plugging anything in. That's important so that you can check that you plug things in the right place. Then write out what all the values are for everything. This is especially important with these problems so that you don't accidentally put 3.1 in for R. Remember, 3.1% means 3.1 divided by 100, which is, you move the decimal 2 places to the left when you divide by 100, right? So it's 0.031 is R. N is 52. Why? Because it's annual interest, right? It's annual interest. Use a pointer for this. It's annual interest compounded weekly. So how many weeks are there? Annual means a year. How many weeks in a year? 52. Same as the number of cards in a poker deck. 13 times 4. Not 48. There's not 4 weeks in a month. Well, there isn't a lunar month, but not in a solar month. Okay, so anyway, P is 1,000, right? And then I would write out this equation and put the numbers in. Right? Again, if I were doing this on my own, I probably would have written this formula out first without the numbers plugged in. Then write out what each letter is, right? And then plug the numbers in. And you just put that in your calculator carefully. And you see that you end up with $1,242.26. Now, how do you check this? Usually on these, you just check for reasonableness. So you started at $1,000. 3.1% interest is not as low as it could be, but it's not really very high either. It's a fairly small amount. And the weekly isn't going to affect it so much. That'll make a small difference. I'll show you in a bit how that works. But it's 7 years. So it's not going to be all that much. You would think maybe I'd get somewhere around $31, a little more than $31 per year times 7 is like 200 and something, right? You can see you get a little bit more than that, 242 something, right? So it looks about right. So what if the interest is compounded daily? So what if I compounded it more often than weekly? Daily. And just assume, and they do this in the text, they always assume there's 365 days per year, even though it's actually closer to 365.24. But for these problems, we're just assuming 365. I don't know why. It's just as easy to put the 0.24 in your calculator, but anyway. So I just changed the 52 times a year for a week to 365. Notice that's in two places, because if you increase the number of times per year you're compounding it, then certainly you're increasing the total number of times you're compounding, which is what this product up here in the exponent is, right? And certainly each time you're going to get less interest than if you compound it every week, right? You're probably going to get 1/7 as much as if you compound it every week. So you have to take your interest rate, annual interest rate, and divide it by 365 times per year that it's compounded. You only get 1/365 of the annual interest rate each compounding. So I multiply that out and I get $1,242.33. Now compare with the previous answer. If I compounded weekly, I get this much. If I compound every day, I get a little bit more, but not a lot. 7 cents actually. So with this interest rate for 7 years and with $1,000 invested, if I compound daily, I make 7 cents more. Okay? It's not huge. So I wrote that out so you can read it on your PDF when you review this.